Hello, everybody. This is Etienne Marceau with the Sports Inquirer, and welcome to another edition of our Sports Inquirer Musings as we just look at the things going on in the world of sports today and kind of preview what's coming up. Today is March 26, 2026, and we have actually a good amount of content going on here in Metro Atlanta, but also expanding beyond the state of Georgia. But as always, to follow everything that we do, head to the mothership to sportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can also go to our social media platforms on Twitter/X, Instagram, and Facebook. Make sure you go on there, look us up. And then finally, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our audio and video hosts, including YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many, many more. Just looking at the landscape of what's going on in the world of sports. Obviously, we are in the eve or the morning before the regional round start. I know we call it the Sweet 16, and it's actually trademarked as well as Elite Eight, Final Four, and NCAA. They trademarked everything, but I still like calling it the regional rounds or the regional and then the regional finals, regional semis and finals. But it's a Sweet 16 for just to make it really more consistent, I guess, for everyone out there. Looking at the matchups, and we're going to preview the matchups over the next 2 days. But just overall thoughts with it. Only one double-digit seed is left, and it's Texas, which is not really a double-digit seed in brand or in resources. I think what you're seeing right now, yes, High Point got their nice win over North Carolina and got Hubert Davis was really an impetus probably for him being relieved of his duties at North Carolina. But the mid-majors, and trust me, working at Belmont and being an alum of Belmont and working at College of Charleston and doing some work with Kennesaw State and even Georgia State as far as interacting with those entities, but then also being a graduate of Vanderbilt, which is in the SEC. So I got a full blend and scope of how collegiate athletics works. But if you look at the basketball side of things, all of those elite mid-major teams, with the exception of Gonzaga, they're kind of in the they've elevated themselves. But I've seen it at Belmont. I've seen it at a lot of schools where you look at the mid-major squad that's playing really well. Look what's going to happen probably at High Point and those players. And we're going to maybe see it at a Troy with Georgia Tech hiring their new head coach in men's basketball. He came from Troy. Those programs that do really well at the Sun Belt, the SoCon, the CAA, the Max, one with 2As and with 1A, if they play really well, not only do those coaches get promoted to higher positions in the Power Four, you can say Power Five with the Big East as far as basketball goes, they're going to go to the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, ACC, Big East conference teams. And they're also going to take their players with them. We've seen with Craig Signetti at Indiana when he was at James Madison, another Sun Belt team, and had a lot of transfers coming to Indiana. 2 years later, national champions. And James Madison is still they've rebounded quite well. But with Chadwick that went there, now he's at UCLA. But the point is, those elite mid-major teams that where you would see them as a group playing together as from freshman year and then sophomores and even juniors and senior laden teams that have played together for multiple years, those rosters, that's been eliminated. And that's why you look at the matchups with Texas, Purdue, Iowa, Nebraska, Arkansas, Arizona, Houston, Illinois, at least as far as the Thursday matchups. All those teams have benefited from the transfer portal. Purdue may be a little bit of an exception with their backcourt played by Braden Smith and with Matt Painter. They really try to recruit from inside. I mean, they bring in guys too. Everyone does. But you look at all these other teams, good amount of roster turnovers, transfers. That's the name of the game. So I think that's where the good part about it is that you're seeing some really, really solid Power 5 teams that are competing right now. But the negative is you're not going to see that Cinderella mid-major. St. Peter's making the Elite Eight last year or 2 years ago. Teams like Florida Gulf Coast making the Sweet 16. Even at Davidson with Steph Curry back when he was at Davidson. Steph Curry would not have been at Davidson for 3 years if he was playing in this current landscape. It wouldn't happen. he would have probably been in the transfer portal definitely after his second year. And he would not have lasted as long at Davidson, and he would have gotten an offer, NIL, just bigger profile, all the above. So, saying all that, this is where it's a different perspective, different landscape than what we're used to seeing in typical NCAA tournaments. And just with the powers that be, the way things are, that's the way it is. But as far as tonight's matchups, we have Purdue versus Texas. I think Purdue, I've been so reluctant to jump on that bandwagon. If you pick Purdue to win national championships or make a long run tournament, they've lost early and lost early often. But this may be the year where they might make another appearance in the Final Four. So I think they'll beat Texas. I mean, they will beat Texas. Arizona and Arkansas, high profile matchup. You probably may have the best player in A-Cup playing in the tournament right now in Arkansas, and they have some really good players on Arkansas. Calipari, highly experienced, against an Arizona team that I think I picked to win the national championship. I think they have the best depth and best roster in the entire tournament. And just looking at overall, Arizona, Michigan, and Duke, those have been the three best teams in college basketball this year, and they've kind of flip-flopped between 1 and 3. Those three teams, I think, overall. So Arizona, I have them win the national championship, so obviously I'm picking them to win this game. But Arkansas, with A-Cup and their roster and Calipari, there is a way Arkansas wins, it would not be overly shocking to me. But I am going to take Arizona to win that game and then beat Purdue ultimately to reach the Final Four. On the other side, you have Iowa and Nebraska, which I didn't know, and forgive my ignorance on this, I didn't know how big of a rivalry this is. Obviously, it's Midwestern big states that do cross over into each other. But no, I don't think they do, actually. I have to pull up the map. My geography is a little off. But very intense matchup, and it's going to be a really rocking scene in that contest. I got to take Nebraska. They beat my Commodores in around the 32. I picked Vanderbilt to make it this far. But I also then picked Iowa to beat Florida. And I have Florida actually winning this game and losing in the Elite Eight to another team, which we'll get to in a moment. But overall, I think Nebraska, looking at their offense and the way they scheme, I think overall with Hoiberg, they're going to be the team to win this matchup. Houston, Illinois, you're probably looking at a matchup in the other round in the Sweet 16 contest in that bracket. Houston was Thakama Sampson, probably better defensive unit. Not one of his better squads, but you know that they're going to keep it defensively. They're going to keep it close. Illinois offensively may be one of the strongest teams in the entire tournament left. But I think overall, Houston defensively will be able to limit Illinois' opportunities, and ultimately they will beat Nebraska to reach the Final Four. Looking at the other side, the East region, which is probably the most star-studded region as far as coaches and players, but especially on the coaching side, you got 4 national champions, 4 Hall of Fame, 3 Hall of Fame, 2 Hall of Famers in Tom Izzo and Rick Pitino. Dan Hurley is going to be in the Hall of Fame whenever his time comes. And then John Shire's done a really solid job at Duke. So that East region, Duke and St. John's, I have Duke winning this contest, but Duke has looked shaky in this entire tournament so far. We saw him in the first round, losing at halftime to 16 seed Siena, but ended up winning that contest and advancing to the Sweet 16. St. John's needed a buzzer beater to get in their victory over Kansas. I think St. John's, it's a really contrasting style. Duke likes to run up and down the court, score quite a bit. St. John's defensively is stout. You worry sometimes about where they're going to get their points from. I think ultimately with Cameron Boozer being the best player on the court, I think that ultimately gets Duke past St. John's. But if Duke has a slow start like they have had in their first 2 games, especially against Siena, St. John's very easily can win this contest. I just think Duke has a little bit more offensively than St. John's does, and that ultimately is going to get Duke into the Elite Eight. And then Michigan State and UConn. Oh man, really a coin flip contest. Michigan State, Izzo. You think that'd be a really good deal there. Connecticut with Hurley. Connecticut is just too up and down for me, too inconsistent. And two losses to St. John's at MSG Madison Square Garden. I'm not going to hold that necessarily against them, but I'm going to take Connecticut over Michigan State in a really, really close contest. And then I think Duke is going to reach the Final Four. That's what I had going into the tournament, and I'm sticking by it. And then finally, we have the final region, Michigan and Alabama. I'm going to take Michigan. Michigan, I think, is the best team in this region. Alabama, a really solid run, despite missing some players for injury and other legal reasons. But I think Michigan is probably the most balanced team in the entire nation. So I have Michigan winning that one. Iowa State, Tennessee. I give Rick Barnes a lot of grief. He has had a lot of early exits in the NCAA tournament, but he has made a solid run here. Iowa State, sneaky good team. I'm going to take Iowa State and then Michigan to beat them to reach the Final Four. And then from there, I have Arizona winning the national championship. So that's just my overall thoughts on that. Hopefully, I will be able to head down to Mercedes-Benz Stadium this weekend as the U.S. men's national team has some friendlies or exhibitions as they prep for the World Cup. They host Belgium on Saturday, March 28th, and then they host Portugal on April 1st, I believe. I will not be at the April 1st one, but I hopefully will be able to make it down to see the men's national team on the 28th, see as they continue to prep for the World Cup. So hopefully we'll have some post-match analysis of what's going on there with that. Baseball is opening its regular season. We saw that, at least I saw a little. I was working, so I didn't catch too much or as much as I wanted to. The San Francisco and New York Yankees contest. I do know Aaron Judge went 0 for 4 and had a few strikeouts. The internet. I want to say poor Aaron Judge. I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer, 3-time MVP. But you have the struggles in the World Baseball Classic, and then you have a slow. It's one game. It's 162. He's going to have his numbers, but not getting a hit in the season opener. It's like he can't play in the clutch, and he's not a winner and all that stuff. But he'll be all right. But Yankees look pretty good. Webb really struggled for the Giants. I think it's one start, obviously, but the Giants. I think people expect the Giants to be consistently a solid team, but you got Tony Vitello, new head coach manager, previously managing at University of Tennessee. That's a big jump. So we'll see with San Francisco. That's a lot, especially in a solidly competitive division. Obviously, the Dodgers are the best team in baseball, and then San Diego. We'll see with them. But Netflix. It looked like a pretty regular baseball contest. I saw the little stat cast and the little box at the bottom with the balls and strikes. I didn't mind it too much. Nothing too crazy. It is great to get some. I have a Netflix account, so able to see baseball. I'm going to have to figure out what to do with the Braves because Braves Vision is the new broadcaster of Atlanta Braves games, and there is a cost for that. So I'm really trying to figure out how I'm going to handle that because it's become really privatized with a lot of these teams wanting to have their own networks, and the Braves have jumped on that trend. So we'll see what happens there. But as far as MLB predictions, I'll save it for another episode. But I think you're looking at the usual suspects. It'd be very surprising if the Dodgers are not representing the NL in the World Series, and they're going to win that division. And then the NL Central, well, I guess I'm doing predictions just to wrap up the show. NL Central, probably Milwaukee. I know there's been some buzz about maybe the Pirates making a run for the postseason with Paul Skeens and some of their young guys. That'd be really great to see the Pirates being competitive. Chicago, obviously, was a postseason squad last year, so that wouldn't be a big surprise. Milwaukee probably is the incumbent to have that. And then in the NL East, the Braves have just been hurt with so many injuries now. Spencer Strider, he may be out for a few weeks, maybe up to a month to start the regular season with his arm issues. And they've had multiple guys go down with that. The top of that Braves lineup, when you look at Acuna and Austin Riley and Ozzie Albies and Olsen at first base, those guys are really going to have to produce at a high level to carry them, because that pitching staff is really not, at least on paper right now, is not going to be strong. We used to the Braves really having solid pitching, but at least in the start of this year, it's going to be a rough go for the first probably month or two, just with injuries and otherwise. Even Chris Sale, who is coming off a Cy Young year 2 years ago, last year was okay. He's another year older. I think he's 37 years old right now. So you got to really wonder about the Braves and what's going on with them. The Mets, and trust me, I grew up in New York. I'll admit I do support the Mets. If you have had a fandom team or a team I support in the NL, but everyone looks at Juan Soto, Spencer, and Francisco Lindor, and it's like, all right, they got two top line guys, but the pitching, you got to wonder about that. Bullpen, Diaz is the reliever, now going to the Dodgers. Mets are, and they're solid. Phillies, you got to think this is the year, because it might be time to break them up, or they're just all getting a year older. So I think that's a really competitive division. Ultimately, I got to think about that one. But I could definitely see 3 playoff teams from that division. And then even the Marlins. Marlins, they're going to be scrappy, but I think the three teams, Braves, Phillies, and the Mets, can be playoff teams. And we've seen that before. NL, you look at the West, probably the Mariners. So I've seen some buzz for maybe Texas, even, I want to say Oakland, the Athletics. But not going to be the Angels. We know that. But ultimately, I think the Mariners win that one. Central, probably Detroit. I mean, Scooble's the best pitcher maybe in the game, definitely in the AL past 2 years, and probably maybe in all of baseball. So probably the Tigers there. And the AL East, you can talk me into the Yankees, the Blue Jays, even the Orioles. Orioles might have a bounce back year. Expectations were so high last year, but I think this upcoming year they can surprise. And Tampa, they're not going to probably win the division or even compete in the playoffs, but they're going to be competitive. But you probably got to take the Yankees to win that division with Toronto and the Red Sox, and even the Red Sox. But I think overall we'll do more in-depth MLB analysis maybe on the next show or two. But I think if you saw Dodgers and I'm going to say Dodgers and a team from the NL and the AL East, I think whoever makes it through that Yankee, Toronto, Baltimore kind of region is going to be representing the AL. Might be leaning towards the Yankees, but we'll see what happens with the MLB season. But this ends this edition of Sports Inquirer Musings. Thank you for listening or watching this latest edition. As always, to follow everything that we do, head to the mothership at sportsinquirer.net for premier news and notes in the world of sports. You can also go to our social media platforms on Twitter /X, Instagram, and Facebook. And finally, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our audio and video host on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and much more. Once again, thank you for listening or watching this latest edition. Until next time, good fight, good night, and be safe.